Namaste everyone. Welcome to the Swadhyaya sessions on Sri Aurobindo's writing, the short book, The Mother. This book is regarded as one of the central scriptures, if you will, of integral yoga. Some followers regard it almost as an Upanishad that reveals the Divine Mother. In the first couple of sessions, we have studied chapter 1 and a little bit of chapter 2. Today, we will try to continue with chapter 2 and also study chapter 3. These are Swadhyaya sessions. So essentially, these sessions are designed to help seekers go through the book in a detailed sort of way to understand what is written, as well as the overall flavor behind what has been written, so that one is able to deep dive. One is able to not just read, but one is able to study and learn. So I am more a facilitator in the process rather than a seeker, or rather than a speaker. So kindly keep this in mind, and as we continue the sessions, we will try to go through chapter after chapter over 10 sessions. And as we go through, if there are any questions, clarifications, one can post here. In today's discussion, we will be going through the second chapter, which many seekers refer to as the chapter on aspiration, rejection, and surrender. We will do a little bit of the study of what is written in the chapter. Also, when we have a suitable forum to do so, I would like to share compilations that have been made on aspiration and rejection and surrender, which bring together many quotations on this subject. So this will allow a deeper study. So with that, we will begin the session today. If you have the book, you may refer to chapter 2. I will read the first 2 paragraphs and then we will go into a deep dive. In all that is done in the universe, the divine, through his Shakti, is behind all action. But he is veiled by his Yogamaya and works through the ego of the Jiva in the lower nature. In yoga also, it is the divine who is the sadhaka and the sadhana. It is his Shakti with her light, power, knowledge, consciousness, ananda, acting upon the adhara, and when it is open to her, pouring into it with these divine forces that makes sadhana possible. The personal effort of the sadhaka remains necessary. The personal effort required is a triple labor of aspiration, rejection, and surrender. So what Sri Aurobindo is doing here, we have seen the first part of this chapter in the previous session, where we talked about the divine Shakti, the Yogamaya, and the ego of the Jiva. We have covered that. And then we talk about the divine being the sadhaka and the sadhana. There is the help that comes to us by the grace of the divine, but also there is a personal effort needed. As long as we identify ourselves with this body, as long as we identify ourselves with this name and form, we will require the personal effort to elevate this nature. And there were questions asked to the mother on this subject. She was asked to elaborate on this phrase that so long as the lower nature is active, the personal effort of the sadhaka remains necessary. The mother says, outwardly, one believes in one's own personality and one's own effort. So long as you believe in personal effort, you must make personal effort. There is one part of the being which is not at all conscious of being a part of the divine. The whole of the outer being is convinced that it is something separate, independent, and related only to itself. This part of the being must necessarily make the personal effort. So the question is about, if the divine is the sadhaka and the sadhana, why should we make the effort? The mother pointed out how, as long as we feel we are separate from the divine, we have to make the effort. Once we are completely identified with the divine, then naturally the divine takes upon himself the sadhana of the individual. In our case, the personal effort is about working in various parts of our being. We discussed how understanding the physical, the vital, and the mental is necessary for us to be able to do sadhana. For example, in the case of physical, what is the general philosophy guiding the physical? Physical wants to have comfort and security. It is governed by habit and routine. It wants pleasure, indulgence in its habits. These are the characteristics of the physical. Repetitive, obstinate, stubborn, difficult to change, not plastic. These are all the characteristics of the physical. The vital, it is governed by desire and ego, pursuit of wealth, power, feverishness, desire and fulfillment of desire, duality, like and dislike. Vital also likes frequent change. It does not like any disciplined routine. It wants to try something new. It wants excitement, full of emotions. Then there is the mental. On one side, when we observe our thoughts, we know we are restless. We know there are thousands of thoughts rushing through our mind every day. Mind also offers logic in support of vital. Whenever we have a desire, the mind rushes to justify the desire. It rationalizes what is otherwise perhaps inimical, harmful to our spiritual life. So, what we'll have to do is to work out in various ways on this physical, vital, and mental, and bring in a certain higher light into them. So, Sri Aurobindo says the personal effort required is a triple labor of aspiration, rejection, and surrender. Now let us see what does he say about aspiration. An aspiration vigilant, constant, unceasing. A vigilant aspiration is that some attention must be always given to what is it that we aspire. It is not something that we remember during our morning prayers and forget. It is something that we should constantly watch out for and protect. A constant aspiration is something that forms the background of our life. A student preparing for exams, whatever he does, at the back of his mind, there is this awareness that exams are nearing and certain preparation is required. A similar constant vibration in the background on a regular basis, that the objective of my life is spiritual upliftment. It is not that we forget it for some time and light the aspiration for some time. It has to be constant. It has to be unceasing. It has to be unstopping. The nature of things is that whatever goes up comes down. When we read a wonderful book or we meet a wonderful seeker, we catch those vibrations and then we go on a high. But after a few days, we kind of come back into our routine. It cannot be that way. It has to be unceasing. The effort has to be untiring. So we have to ensure that there is a constant, a vigilant, constant, and unceasing aspiration. There is also a question asked here about a clarification between desire and aspiration. The mother points out that desire is inherently a vital movement, but aspiration is more of a psychic movement. It comes from inside. It comes from deep within. The vibration of aspiration is calm and luminous. The vibration of desire, on the other hand, is dark, restless, violent. So it is a steady and strong aspiration. And Sri Aurobindo writes further on aspiration. He now talks about the mind, the vital, and the physical. He says the mind's will, the heart's seeking, the ascent of the vital being, the will to open and make plastic the physical consciousness and nature. Mind has a hidden faculty. We are only aware of the thoughts and restlessness of the mind. To a certain extent, we are aware of concentration and meditation. But there is a hidden capacity of the mind which most of us grow into adulthood without knowing that it exists or without working on developing it constantly. Is the faculty of will. Dharma of the mind is to will, and the dharma of the heart is to seek, says Madhav Panditji. We have the capacity to will, and when we create a strong mental will, our inner being gradually obeys it. So what Sri Aurobindo is saying here is that when we have a strong aspiration, the will of the mind has to be tuned to that aspiration. And that will change our life in tune with our aspiration. And then the heart's seeking, whatever we do, we should be in a position to fine-tune our desires, fine-tune our emotions in line with our aspiration. That is what we have to do. Whatever happens, we should try to gradually mold our nature in line with the aspiration. Slowly, slowly, when the vital begins to align itself, it can be a big force. The vital is the pranamaya kosha, our emotions, our energies. The other day, I was talking to a serious sadhak, and one of the things he said is that a serious spiritual sadhak, manasa, vacha, karma, is aligned towards his goal. Those are Mahatmas who are able to align manasa, vacha, karma, what they deeply desire, what they speak and how they speak, and the works that they do and the actions they take. The three of them are in unison. That is the person who is a Mahatma, he said. In our world, inner and outer, we have constant dissonance. And that dissonance, Sri Aurobindo is saying, has to be aligned towards our aspiration. And then the last part, the physical consciousness, we need to make the physical consciousness plastic. Rigidity is one of the hallmarks of physical. Somehow, we have to work together with the physical so that there is a collaboration, but not a continuous coercion. We should not have to force it all the time. Our aspiration should have the support of all the three elements, the physical, the vital, and the mental. I'll give you an example of how we bring together the physical collaboration. Simple thing. We all know meditation is helpful in spiritual path. Any serious spiritual seeker knows about it. But how we work? I have met people who take up sentences of Mother and Sri Aurobindo to justify the fact that they cannot meditate, therefore they quote Mother's words that there is no need for meditation. Whereas the truth is this is integral yoga, and time and again Sri Aurobindo and Mother have said that meditation can be helpful. So this is how our vital and mental work. They whip up justifications for something that is considered by and large universally in this path and practically in every other religious as well as spiritual path. Meditation is considered necessary, and these individuals bring up justifications that they don't have to meditate. This is mind and vital justifying what is actually our laziness. When it comes to physical, it is so hard to sit and meditate. We know it is important, but we barely meditate 3 to 4 times a week, and most of them once in 3 to 4 weeks. We know it is important, but we don't cultivate the habit of meditation because body which is used to a certain restlessness doesn't like being tied down in a single place. We have to learn. And when we do so, the way we bring in plasticity into the body is initially the first day we don't try and sit to meditate for 45 minutes. We maybe sit for 10 minutes or 15 minutes. and then gradually work with our body and open it up and train it so that it can sit for 30 minutes. The truth is the capacity can be increased to even meditate in multiple sessions for 4 to 5 hours in a day. I am not arguing about the necessity of doing so or relevance of doing so in integral yoga. I am just saying the body has so much unused capacity, but we bring the body to a point where even 20 minutes of sitting is difficult because we don't make use of that capacity of the body. We need to train it and make it plastic. So that is about aspiration. The mind's will has to be trained, the heart's seeking, the consent of the vital being, the assent of the vital being, and the will to open and make plastic the physical consciousness and nature. Next, we come to rejection. Rejection of the movements of lower nature. For those of you who may have studied Vedanta or any of our traditional paths in a big way, rejection is very central to Vedanta. Neti neti. I don't want this. This is not what is good for the spiritual journey. So I discard it. And in rejection, there is again at the mind level, at the emotional level, and at the physical level. What is it that one has to reject at the mind's level? Rejection of the mind's ideas, opinions, preferences, habits, constructions, so that the true knowledge may find free room in a silent mind. Now, Sri Aurobindo is primarily talking about rejection, but also he is throwing light upon a desired state of our mind that is conducive to our spiritual journey. He says, a silent mind. A mind governed by restlessness, thoughts, constant activity from the time we open our eyes to the time we close our eyes is not conducive for spiritual journey. It is not in tune with the spiritual nature of man. What is better is that we have a silent mind. How do we arrive at a silent mind? How do we train the mind? How do we clean the mind? Sri Aurobindo is explaining here. He says, rejection of the mind's ideas, opinions, preferences, habits, constructions. The truth is, my friends, our personality is more or less fossilized, crystallized, concretized by the time we reach 30 years of age. By the time we reach 30, 34, 35 years of age, our mind is more or less frozen. Every impulse elicits a very predictable reaction. The career we take up molds our mind. Our experiences chisel our mind. And more or less, the impulse response sequence can be predictable for most of us after 30, 35. You say this, that person will say that. Almost predictable. Why? Well, in the absence of spiritual seeking and conscious reworking, we arrive at a certain plateau of personality, and that personality does not change. Some people are greedy, some people are stingy, some people are jealous, some people are restless, some people, all of this combination is frozen by the time we are 30, 35, unless we constantly reflect upon our personality and work on refining it again and again. And what is common, irrespective of the definite imprint, a lawyer may have a certain way of thinking and working, a doctor may have, an accountant, that also influences us, by the way, an artist. They all influence us in a big way. But what is common to most of humanity is that on average, we process somewhere between 60 to 70,000 thoughts in a day. That is almost one thought every 2 seconds. Restless, confused. All of that noise has to be settled. How is it possible? By reading spiritual scriptures, by meditating, by doing a little bit of spiritual practices, by spending time in nature, by being in silence, by not letting WhatsApp dictate the hour-to-hour and moment-to-moment reactions, by giving ourselves free time and space. All these practices can help us arrive at a silent mind. And yes, with a little bit of effort, at whatever age you are, it is possible to arrive at a silent mind. Then Sri Aurobindo talks about the rejection of lower nature in the vital domain. And here there is a very long list. I will just read it out. Rejection of vital nature's desires, demands, cravings, sensations, passions, selfishness, pride, arrogance, lust, greed, jealousy, envy, hostility to the truth. Look at the list he has given us, almost 10, 15 items. These are the common problems plaguing all of us. Hostility to the truth. It reflects inwardly and outwardly, this hostility to the truth. Parts of our personality, we don't want to even recognize that they exist. That is hostility to the truth. I cover my ambition in a cloak of being a social worker. I cover my fear in the garb of a preference. I do not wish to face my own true personality. When I play politics in office, I justify it in some other way. So many layers we have. So many parts of us that we don't even want to look at or acknowledge. The mother says, when they come to me for their blessings, they try to hide all these other parts and come to me like little saints. And then she says, unless they open these parts to me, it is difficult for me to work upon transforming them. And sometimes she even says, those parts that they try very hard to hide, they come in front of me very easily. They peep and look at me. So, my friends, even though each of us should look at this individually and try to work out these elements, we don't have to be very defensive or negative about it, that, oh, I'm so terrible, oh, I'm so bad, oh, I'm so full of weaknesses. The truth is, we are all cut of the same cloth of nature that is manifest at this period in time. With a minor variation of 5 or 10%, we are all the same. So much so that mother said, when they come to me many times, I don't see the individual personality. I see a cloud of common emotions. Probably if we wear spiritual glasses of spiritual light, each of us is this gray blob with a few white and a few dark spots. But we have to seek and we have to work and we have to gradually reject all of these things so that we can make spiritual progress. We must empty all these impurities from the vital being, because till the glass is emptied, what is coming down cannot come down. In fact, if we are full of this mixture or we are a weak vital being, we are always reactive. We are always restless. We are always insecure. So we have to reject all of it. Reject and do what? So that the true power and joy may pour from above into a calm, large, strong, and consecrated vital being. So this is the completion part. We have to reject these impurities and yet move to our higher personality. Our emotion and energy being, we can carry a vast aura. We can carry, if we carry peace in us very deeply, we don't have to say a word. If we sit in a room, the room will have vibrations of peace and everybody else will be able to feel that vibrations. When somebody does a shake hand, those vibrations are transmitted, the vibrations of peace and light and purity. When somebody looks into our eyes, they are able to feel a tranquil pool of peace. This is how a spiritual person grows. And we have to become this calm, large, and strong, consecrated, vital being. Let us work on, first of all, recognizing our weaknesses and then finding the antidote. Sometimes the antidotes are not very obvious. We want to control our anger. We have been trying, so many of us who are spiritually inclined, to control our anger, yet we can't. We often succeed in suppressing anger, but we don't control. We fail at controlling when we try to. Why? Because perhaps suppression and control don't work very well with anger. So what works with anger? How do we overcome anger? If we transform our vital being into a pool, a deep pool of peace, automatically the vibration of anger cannot emerge there. It cannot take root there. So the antidote for anger is deep-rooted peace, peace almost in the cells of the body, peace in our vital being, this region between the chest, between the top of the neck and the base of the spine. If we are able to feel concrete peace there throughout our day, then it is very unlikely that strong anger can take root. You may still have a vibration come and go, but you have established peace that the anger dissolves into that peace. So the approach towards some of these elements may not be very obvious. One has to read and learn and evolve to be able to grasp these things and become this calm and large and wide and consecrated vital being, something that is offered to the divine. And then rejection of the physical nature. What all do we talk about in the physical nature? Again, the list is long. Physical rejection of the physical natures: stupidity, doubt, disbelief, obscurity, obstinacy, pettiness, laziness, unwillingness to change, tamas, so that the true stability of light and power, ananda, may establish itself in a body growing always more divine. So what do we have here? Physical nature's stupidity, doubt, disbelief, obscurity, obstinacy. Obstinacy means that it does not yield to a deeper reason or a higher reason. I know a seeker who has been stuck wanting proof of divine existence, of the existence of the divine. The person has been stuck there for a decade. But there is a seeking. But there is obstinacy. The leap of faith hasn't happened yet, and it may or may not happen in this lifetime. Yet something keeps that person in and around Indian spirituality. If we are not careful, this stupidity, doubt, disbelief, obscurity, they can continue as a lifetime of difficulty for us. We have to make sure that we outgrow them with our effort. The nature of doubt is to go on doubting. No amount of proof is sufficient in the spiritual life. One has to have faith before the divine grace can actually lift us up. One has to have the aspiration with faith, not with doubt. And the physical nature is repetitive. It is obscure. It is lazy. It does not want to change. Simple. Try changing the posture in which you sleep and see how many days it takes for you to get used to the next posture. That is how rigid it is. So one may be inclined to say that, oh, physical nature is an obstacle, but actually, what gets established at the physical nature also provides stability in spiritual path. What gets established at the physical stands longer in spiritual seeking. So physical is necessary. In integral yoga of Sri Aurobindo in particular, there is a lot of prominence given to the physical. In meditation, one can go up to the mind level and feel the vibrations of peace, but they are subtle, they disappear very quickly. In integral yoga, what you feel at this plane has to be brought down. It has to be brought down into the vital and across the physical. So do not think physical is an obstacle. Physical is the basis for all spiritual work, but it has to be enlightened. It has to be purified. It has to be rejuvenated. It is the adhara that needs to be strengthened with a good amount of effort, so that the light and power and ananda may establish itself in a body growing always more divine. So let us remember that physical is a powerful tool, and we need to make sure that this tool is used in a purified way. It has to be made a part of the sadhana. What we eat, how we sleep, the habits, the regularity, the respect, the plasticity, the physical exercise part, all of that has to be provided so that this adhara, this base, may serve us long in the spiritual journey. And then Sri Aurobindo concludes with this chapter. In proportion as the surrender and self-consecration progress, the sadhaka becomes conscious of the divine Shakti doing the sadhana, pouring into him more and more of herself, founding in him the freedom and perfection of the divine nature. The more this conscious process replaces his own effort, the more rapid and true becomes his progress. But it cannot completely replace the necessity of personal effort unless the surrender and consecration are pure and complete from top to bottom. Note that a tamasic surrender, refusing to fulfill the conditions and calling on God to do everything and save one all the trouble and struggle, is a deception and does not lead to freedom and perfection. The last section of this aspiration, rejection, and surrender is the surrender part. Sri Aurobindo simply writes one sentence: surrender of all of oneself and all one is and has, and every plane of consciousness and in every movement of the divine Shakti. Compared to aspiration and rejection, surrender is written in a very small paragraph or sentence. But do understand that in this book alone, Sri Aurobindo speaks of surrender in every chapter. Chapter 1, Chapter 2, Chapter 3, Chapter 4, Chapter 5, Chapter 6. In various ways, he speaks of surrender. Elsewhere, he says, surrender is the beginning of integral yoga, and surrender is the completion of integral yoga. It's there in the beginning, it's there in the end. I'm paraphrasing it. So just look at it. Surrender of all one is and has, and every plane of consciousness. One cannot emphasize enough in every small matter. He also uses the word self-consecration here. Surrender often is a mental decision, and self-consecration is working out the decision in a good amount of detail. In day-to-day activities, one has to be conscious and one has to work out in a meticulous, methodical way the surrender. If I have a desire, how do I surrender my desire? If I have a strong, any other vital movement, how do I surrender it? When I'm making important decisions, how do I implement surrender? It is very easy to say in one of the famous artis, Tera tujhko arpan, kya lage kya mera, all this is yours, I'm offering it to you. But how do you work it out? When we wrestle with important problems in life, whether to change a job or not, whether to get a child in our family married to a particular alliance or not, whether I'm selecting a school for my child or not, are we thinking of the divine? Are we praying to the divine for guidance? Or are we putting our emphasis and preference on the divine's head? I want that particular college, I want this particular job. Or are we surrendering, saying, Lord, you know better. Whoever your Isht is, I want this, but you do what you think is best for me. These are movements of surrender. When something doesn't work out, are we able to surrender that rejection or surrender that particular failure if it is considered a failure at that time? All of these, one has to gradually give up. And also surrender, as Sri Aurobindo has pointed out, in the earlier chapter, it cannot be a tamasic surrender. Let the divine do everything if he cares. No, we cannot do that. So aspiration, rejection, and surrender, these are the three important elements in integral yoga. We have seen how to apply them in the physical, vital, and the mental. And that completes chapter 2 of the book, The Mother. We will take up chapter 3 now. It is a small chapter. It is a short but important chapter. We will do to whatever extent we can today and try to forward. Chapter 3. To walk through life armored against all fear, peril, and disaster, only two things are needed, two that always go together: the grace of the Divine Mother, and on your side, an inner state made up of faith, sincerity, and surrender. So we spoke about how surrender appears in practically every single chapter of this book. Terms that appear importantly in this chapter: faith, sincerity, and surrender. When we talk of faith, often we think of it as a binary faith. Either somebody has faith or somebody does not have faith. What we should understand that faith also is something that can be gradually developed, cultured, deepened, and strengthened. Faith can start initially with a mental interest. And as we work, as we nurture, the faith deepens. It moves not only from the mental level where it is a little bit sporadic, to a point where it enters into deeper layers of our being. That kind of a faith reflects in immense courage. So much so that what you believe in and what you speak and say and how you live, all of them are rooted in the divine. It is important for a spiritual seeker to examine and re-examine periodically the state of one's faith and work on nurturing and grooming it. Is my faith deep? Or if there is one problem and one bad thing happens in my life, I lose faith. We know such people. When a trauma happens in the family, they reject the guru or the God. If you could not protect me, what use are you? We have seen examples like that. A deeper faith and deeper surrender allow us to connect to the divine in a way that we transcend this mind and life and body. And we remember that the connection lasts for many lives. And once we surrender, the Guru takes charge of our soul, not just this life. Life after life, the Guru protects us and takes care of us. That strengthening of faith is necessary. Sri Aurobindo goes on and says, let your faith be pure and candid and perfect. An egoistic faith in the mental and vital being, tainted by ambition, pride, vanity, mental arrogance, vital self-will, personal demand, desire for petty satisfaction of lower nature, is a low and smoke obscured flame that does not burn towards heaven. Sometimes human beings are described as individuals with wings of fire, but feet of lead. We have parts of us that are seeking the heavens, yet we have parts of us that love to soak in the mud and clay. We are a mixture. And here, Sri Aurobindo is pointing out that be careful about this mixture. An egoistic faith. In fact, when somebody asked the mother, she said, almost Most faith that I see is mixed with ego. That's what she commented. The idea is that the faith should have purity, and it should not be something that pulls down the higher light so that the lower can satisfy itself. The pure faith, Mother says, can be all powerful and irresistible. So we have to be careful. What is this mixture? All of us are a mixture. But what is this mixture that we are living with? Let your sincerity and surrender. Sorry, just 1 second. The earlier paragraph, first paragraph, there is a section which we haven't covered. Regard your life as given you only for the divine work and to help in the divine manifestation. Desire nothing but purity, force, light, wideness, calm, ananda of the divine consciousness, and its insistence to transform and perfect your mind and life and body. Just the first phrase of this is a very powerful phrase, the very first phrase. Regard your life as given you only for the divine work and to help in the divine manifestation. You may say, sir, this sentence is not for grihasthas, this sentence is for sannyasis. Because they are the ones who have decided to dedicate their life for spiritual pursuit. What is there with us? We have children, we have husband, wife, mother-in-law, father-in-law, mother, father, so many people we have to look after. How can we say my life is given only for the divine? We need to remember the approach of Sanatana Dharma in this context. It is very wide. Ishavasyam idam sarvam. It doesn't say Ishavasyam idam sannyasi, Ishavasyam idam Ganga. No. Ishavasyam idam sarvam. Sarvam is you and sarvam is me. All of us are a part of this entire manifestation, which is meant for the habitation of the Lord, for the divine manifestation. We just have to wake up to it and realize that our life, what we consider as our life, is primarily the manifestation of God in this particular form, with this particular set of relations, with this particular Nama and Rupa. Only then can we genuinely call ourselves as spiritual seekers. It is a very liberative approach, because then your burdens are not your burdens are the divine's burdens. Our problems are not our problems are divine's problems. So, our life, as long as we regard our life as being given to us for earning money, comfortable life, ensuring that we have great career, acquiring maximum number of properties, taking care of the requirements of the next generation and the next generation and the next generation. If we live that life, then in Sri Aurobindo's vocabulary, we are leading a vital life. He does not say you should not do all that, but he says you do all that with the idea that you are doing it for the divine, not for the ego. We will dwell more upon this particular sentence next time also. Regard your life as given you only for the divine work and to help in the divine manifestation. I would encourage all of you to read chapter 2 again and to completely read chapter 3 before the next class, so that we are able to continue our Swadhyaya sessions.